Welcome back to the Let's Talk with Kimberly Nicole podcast. This is season 1, episode 3. Let's talk about the power of a pivot. So, before we dive right in, I do want to address the area that you see me sitting in. So, I originally, this is September, where it's still Care Awareness Month. And so, this area that you see me sitting in was originally designated in my home as a self-care / altar area. So what I mean by that is I created it just to have a nice little space that I could kick back, relax. I could read my Bible. I could talk to God, meditate, whatever I needed to do for that day. So to be honest, I really haven't used the space for that because I honestly do all those things in other spaces. But this has still just been a nice little functional space. And I have a window view, like I can look outside and I have a nice view from here. So it is just nice to sit out here, or not out here, but sit over here in this space. And so in case you're looking to create like a self-care or altar space in your home, I'll just share a little bit about this space. You can't see it, but I'm sitting on an ottoman that's functional and it doubles as storage space. Then I have my diffuser that I got on Amazon, and I have essential oils. I love lavender, and I recently I found one at Food Line, y'all. I was grocery shopping, and it was like a calm one, but it's a woodsy / citrusy scent. So it's amazing because I love like those heavy woodsy scents, and then it's like mixed with citrus. So y'all, I love it. And then I have some different quotes that I have over here. I love quotes, scriptures, things that are inspirational. So this is just a nice little spot. I can play some music. You see the lamp, but it's actually kind of part of another area. But yeah, so just to kind of give you all some ideas, I might have to post a picture, or maybe in the notes, I'll post these items and where I got them from. But yeah, so we'll just go ahead on and jump into today's topic. When we talk about the pivot, pivot has almost become like a buzzword out there, almost like narcissism. And I use those words just because, and you'll see me looking down, I just have some notes. But those words, I use those words because those are words that are used so frequently, and people almost don't even know it's not even almost. Some people don't know what some of them mean. We throw them out there so frequently. So when we talk about pivot in this sense, we're talking about making a change in your life, making a change in direction, turning around, starting over, trying something new, whatever, because a pivot can look like a number of different things. And so as I was preparing for this episode, I thought about an example of, this quote, they say when life throws you lemons, you make lemonade. But what about when you have lemons and you had the intentions to make lemonade, but you certainly decided, I want a cake, I want a 7-Up cake instead? You pivot because you have some of the ingredients. You already have the lemons that you were going to put in the lemonade, and now you can put them in the 7-Up cake. Now, I've never made a 7-Up cake, but I did look at I looked online at the ingredients, and I'm sure everyone may do it different or have their variations, but lemons was one of the ingredients. 7-Up, powdered sugar, lemon juice, all-purpose. You originally set out to make lemonade, and now you want to make a 7-Up cake. You're pivoting, you're changing what you were going to do, but some of the ingredients that you originally had go into what you are now going to do. I'm going to say that one more time. So you were originally going to make lemonade, and you had lemons and sugar, because I hope you put sugar in your lemonade. But now you've decided to pivot for whatever reason. You decided you wanted to make a cake instead. And so now you take those same lemons, you take that same sugar, and you just have to add a couple more ingredients along the way. But you had some of the things that you needed already from your previous season. And that's how it is in life. My favorite scripture is Romans 8:28. All things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So everything, every experience, all the lemons that we had in our life work together. And when we decide to pivot, we don't lose those lemons. We just reuse them, and not reuse them, but we use them in a different capacity than we originally planned. And so that's often how it goes in our life when we decide to pivot. So think about it if you were an artist. And in this sense, when I say an artist, I think about someone paints. So you have paintbrushes, paint, you have canvases, you probably have easels, et cetera, et cetera. And so then think about one day if you wake up and you decide this ain't it, and you want to teach people. Well, you could teach art, or maybe you like, I just want to be a social studies teacher. I want to be a history teacher. So you're like, okay, nothing that I have from being an artist can transfer to being a history teacher. But that's absolutely false, because the patience that you have to have as an artist, you have to have patience to see your vision come to life. You have to have patience for the paint to dry. And it takes a whole hell of a lot of time for paint to dry. So you got to have patience to see that paint dry. You transfer that over to the classroom. When you get in the classroom, you have to have patience with those students. You may even be able to use literally the materials like the canvases and the paint and the paintbrush, and have the students in your history class paint pictures of different scenes of from a chapter in the history book. And that can be a creative, engaging way to get your students involved using what you already have and then building upon it with the skills that you'll need to go along the way. So you can transfer that patience, you can transfer those materials, you can transfer patience. It slipped my mind, but patience is a big one. There's some other skills that you have to have as an artist. You have to have tenacity. You got to have dedication to stick with being an artist. And the same, you have to have those same traits with teachers. I mean, with being a teacher, you have to have tenacity. Especially, I don't teach. I mean, I won't say I don't teach. I'm not a teacher, but the things that I hear, baby, these stories, you got to have a lot of patience and tenacity in the classroom. You got to have a lot of determination in the classroom. Artists, there's this thing that artists don't get paid as much as some other professions. Teachers don't either. So you got to have that perseverance to know that you're in it for the outcome and not the income. And that's something that you can transfer as an artist. You're in it, maybe not for the income, but the outcome of the painting and what the painting represents and what it does when it gets in the hands of whoever purchases it from you. And the same thing as a teacher. You're not necessarily in that for the income, but the outcome of the lives that you touch, the seeds that you sow. So just a little bit kind of giving an illustration of a practical illustration of a pivot. And then I'm going to share just a little bit about myself. But before I share, I just want to say that I admire people that are able to pivot. And I do remember a couple years ago on my timeline on social media, I saw a young lady that posted a new business endeavor, and she had posted multiple different endeavors that she had done. And I remember when she posted this new one, she said something along the lines of, I know y'all see me do a lot of different things. However, this is something new. And I really believe that this is my niche. And I remember thinking, like, for her to say that, she probably has heard somewhere in her life, oh, you always change it up, get somewhere, sit down and figure out what you want to do. But it takes tenacity and courage to keep trying, because if you try something and it doesn't work, or you try something and you see you need to adjust it and pivot to keep going, that takes a lot of tenacity and dedication, because you could just keep going with what's not working. And, it's insanity to continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. And really, it's foolishness to continue to do something when you know it's not working, it's very prideful to continue to do something when you know it's not working, because you're more concerned about what you look like and what other people are going to say. No, you got to go ahead and move and make a pivot, because you're now wasting time and resources. You have to figure out what's going to work for you. Can you tweak it, or is it that you just need to throw the whole thing away and start over? And it's often not that you throw the whole thing away, but maybe if this isn't working, you can do something completely different, but don't throw the whole thing away, and that you don't transfer the skills that you needed for one career to another, or one hobby to another, whatever it is that you're pivoting from. So just to talk a little bit about my own journey and my own story in terms of pivoting. Whew, let me take a drink. And let me take some water for hydration. Because my throat is really dry, y'all. So, yeah. I will take you all back to 2013. So I'm most widely known, I would say, as someone who's creative. And so in 2013, I was working on my master's degree, my master's in business administration. And so one of my assignments to work on was to create a business plan because, you're learning about business and you have to create your own business plan. So me being me, I said, let's make this worthwhile and useful. And let's create a business plan for the business that I have a vision to actually bring to fruition. And so that began the birth of creativity. And it was a play on my name instead of the C. So the word creativity, of course, is spelled with the CR, but the play on my initials was to have it as a capital KR and then EATIVITY. So creativity was my business, and I did a lot of custom items. I started off doing like custom wine glasses, custom mugs, baby shower items. I did photo memory books. I was gonna say, you name it. I really did try a couple of different things. And then I went into doing wreaths. I went into doing door signs. I even did a couple of pivots within that business. So I will always be the first to admit that along the way, I made a lot of mistakes. And a lot of them stem from my beliefs, stem from things now where I'm at in life from a personal healing journey perspective and a professional's perspective as a mental health clinician. I realized that a lot of my past trauma was guiding my decisions and causing me to self-sabotage. And so I made a lot of different mistakes within that business. Now, did I do some things right? Yeah, absolutely. But I also made a lot of mistakes within that business. But some of the things that I did do well was that I was always willing to try new things. And sometimes that can be like it's a good thing and a bad thing as a creative, because you can try a lot of things, a lot of profit that way, but then you also can learn a lot of new skills. So it's a good side and a bad side to that. So I tried a lot of different things with creativity. I was really just trying to find my niche within being a creative. And so I think I did some designs probably for events, but it wasn't until 2021 where I really began to shift and make that my focus. So let's jump into 2020 real quick before we get to 2021. So still creativity at this time is still a business. I'm not pushing it as much, but I was doing custom items here and there as people would reach out and request. And a lot of them were people that knew me or friends of friends at that time. But business has slowed down a whole lot, and I really wasn't pushing it because that's actually when I birthed Let's Talk. And Let's Talk originally, I believe, or that might have been 2019 that I birthed Let's Talk. I know I did an event for Let's Talk in 2019, but I don't know if I can't remember if I actually birthed it then. But Let's Talk was originally created to be a safe space for teen and preteen girls to have those conversations that are not being had, but need to be had. So we're talking about boys, sex, not just boys and sex, but those are two things that came to mind. But just creating a safe space for young girls and women. And I really wanted to become what I needed because I'm a big sister. And so I wanted to give these young girls a space to have this conversation with someone that they knew that they could trust and that would give them sound advice and just be a listening ear to what the girls had going on. And side note, I was like, y'all gonna see me looking around. I look out the window every now and then because it is a nice view. Yeah, so Let's Talk started as that safe space for teen girls and preteen girls. And so in 2020, of course, the pandemic hit, the world shut down. And so during that time, we did a lot of virtual meetings. So we would meet about a different topic and we would talk. And then going into 2021, I'm trying to remember when this actually changed. So I was still doing creativity along the way with this while I was doing Let's Talk. And I remember a friend of mine was telling me, he was like, you inspire more people than you know. He was like, you inspire more women than you know, and men too. And so I remember like taking it kind of with a grain of salt. And I'm gonna explain what I mean by that, because it held a lot of weight coming from this person, because I value what they say, value it greatly, and their voice in my life. But I was kind of locked in my mind to, oh, you're called to women. Like, it's like, okay, well, maybe it's 1 or 2 men that get something out of this, but you're called to women. But at the same time, the men that are attached to the women are definitely going to get something out of it, because when you're empowering as a woman, if you're getting empowered, all the men attached to you, everyone attached to you, so that includes the men, they get empowered too, and their life elevates and upgrades, and vice versa. If you're a man getting empowered, all the women connected to you are also going to get empowered. So, but that's another conversation for another day. But anyway, so I remember him saying that, and I remember I took it and listened, but I still was kind of locked into like, you're called to women. So I continued to do my group meetings with Let's Talk, and then Let's Talk started turning into its own thing. And when I say its own thing, now in hindsight, and even I probably kind of realized this as it was happening. Well, no, maybe I didn't as it was happening, but it turned into its own thing in the sense of God. I surrendered it to God without even realizing that was what I was doing. And so I think it was 2022 when I remember 2021, I think I had like planned out what 2022 was. And I remember one of my friends confirming, she was like, look, get you some friends that can confirm what God is saying to you, okay? Because she was like, you need to make sure that you continue, you remain consistent with your group meetings with Let's Talk. And so I had already like planned them out, and so I made sure that I remained consistent with that. And the audience changed. It turned from girls and women, which it was mainly like, it started with 9 to 18-year-olds. And then when I did an event around business, and I shared a little bit of my story and journey with creativity, I had like 20 somethings that came to the group. And then in 2022, it turned into moms and daughters. And it was something that happened without me even really like having the awareness of it. And then when I realized it, I remember saying multiple times to multiple people, well, I don't know what God is doing, but I surrender. Or I don't know what God is doing, but I'm going to let him have his way with it. And now in hindsight, I realized that I was surrendering without even really trying to surrender, or really having awareness that was what I was doing, was surrendering. Let's Talk. And so at the end of 2022, it was like the moms, mainly moms and daughters. We went out to eat, and we talked a little bit about what 2023 would look like, but I did not feel led to lock in anything and like send out like a save the date, put this on your calendar. And if you know me, you know that when I'm doing something, I'm gonna plan it, and I'm gonna be like, let's lock this date in, let's put it on the calendar. But I didn't feel led to do that. Now I had ideas and I had topics, because I was like, look, we need to take these topics up a notch. We need to take them up deeper. And I had notes written in my phone, but it never came to fruition. And the beginning of 2023, I believe, may have been prior to 2023, was when God started showing me that Let's Talk was much bigger than a girls group. Not that anything was wrong. There was nothing wrong with a girls group, but he showed me mental health consultation, mental health education, and self-care coaching. And he showed me that to open it up, it's not just for the women or the females, like you need to open it up to males. And so then that kind of had me to think back to what my friend had shared, that were affirming of what he had said, that, you know, you out here inspiring a lot of men. A lot of men are touched by what you do as well. And so Let's Talk pivoted many times. And a lot of it came from me just really being surrendered and being willing to whatever it needed to look like, and not being so locked into my vision for it. Because if I was locked into my vision for Let's Talk, I would have missed out on so many blessings and opportunities. Because since focusing on mental health education, consultation, and self-care coaching, I've had so many opportunities to open up. Back in April, I did a community event, or I attended and was a vendor at a community event. And I got to meet so many people, got to learn about different opportunities, got to put myself out there, got to connect and network. Even on my job, I last year, yeah, because it's been a little over a year now. September 1st was actually my work anniversary in my new position. I've been with the company for a while, but with the new position. But also was a part of a conversation and co-created a self-care room on campus, which is a space that individuals can come to incorporate self-care into their day. And the goal is, you can't be in there for hours on end while we're at work, but to incorporate that practice into your life, and that create that rhythm and consistency of self-care in your life. And so I've been told by individuals, that it has had a positive impact on them. So, just being open and surrendered has opened so many doors that have not only helped and blessed me, but have helped and blessed those connected to me in different ways. Even some people connected to me closely, some people connected to me at a distance. So there's so much power in a pivot. Go back now to talk a little bit about my pivot with creativity. So, like I said, I kind of ended in 2020. I said I was like simultaneously doing custom items along with Let's Talk. So that carried into 2021, but 2021 was when I really began to rebrand. And it was towards the end of 2021. It was October to be exact. Now, earlier in that year, I had already started walking out. Like, I started only taking on events. And so I did 2 events earlier, one in the spring and one midsummer. But October, I remember, because I was also in a place where I was personally going through a transformation and a rebrand and a pivot, if I'm honest. But I also was in a very dark season. And I remember being in my bed. It was a Sunday, and I remember maybe I streamed church or something, but I remember like afterwards I was just on my computer and I was just typing, and I was tearing creativity up. Like, and what I mean by that was I felt led to rebrand. And when I get into those modes where I know I need to make changes, I tear shit up. And in the sense of like, I'm like, okay, let's get rid of this logo. I become like a machine. Like, let's get rid of this logo. Let's like look at these practices, these policies. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's change it. Let's, rebrand it. Let's make this thing new. So that's what I was doing. I was in a dark place that day, and I was sitting in bed, but so many ideas were coming to me, and so I was just flowing with them. And prior to that, or was it maybe not prior to that, around that same time, I entered to win a business strategy coaching session. And y'all, when I enter raffles and things, I feel like I never win, but I won this one, and I entered late. I think I entered like at the deadline, or like maybe even a little after the deadline, but I got the message that I won. So I knew it was God. I was like, because I never win anything, and I entered either late or like right as the deadline was happening. And then I still won. So shout out to Dr. Latanya Moore. She's an awesome business coach and strategist. And so that was who my session was with. And so that ended up being a Saturday. And it was, I think, the following week, because I had already started my rebranding, because her session confirmed a lot of things that I was already saying. And putting together in the rebrand. So it was definitely like a God moment. It was like I had already started my little process of tearing everything up, and then she came in and confirmed it. And I knew it was God because I know she's led by the Holy Spirit, and I trust the God in her. And I know that God lives within me, so I knew us coming together, and she had prayed about everything before we even met. So I knew that this is okay. This is what I'm actually supposed to do. So I had started pivoting. I had done a name change, and I've never actually publicly said this, but creativity no longer exists. And so I even literally the page that I had for creativity, I just rebranded it. I did, instead of taking it down, I kept the same followers, illustrious moments, and I started advertising my event designs, and I even did some Christmas trees, and I actually have some things that are coming out this year for Christmas as far as like designing Christmas trees. So I put all that out on my page, and I just really started deconstructing and reconstructing, laying a new foundation, because I really do know that ending creativity was ending a chapter of my life, and it was ending a chapter that was brutal, to be honest. And this is not to say that if you create something in a season that's tough, it won't survive. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. But for me, I will say that closing that door and ending that chapter also was a metaphor and an analogy of me needing to end some other things that were going on, some mindsets. Baby, like, let's go into the promised land. And like I said, during that time, that fall, when I was going through that business transformation, I was going through personal transformation also. I had moved, and I remember anytime that I move, I pray over my new spot. I pray wherever I move. I usually I walk through the whole dwelling and I pray. Or it may be a room, because I remember this particular time, I feel like it was my room that I was just kind of circling through because it was empty at the time. And I remember I tend to, if I pray and if I walk while I pray, I tend to walk in circles. And so I remember walking in circles, and transformation was the word that God dropped into my spirit so clearly. Like sometimes, because I'll be honest with y'all, sometimes I'll be like, I don't know, like, is God talking to me? I really don't know. But I knew that was him, like transformation. It just came out of nowhere, essentially. Like it wasn't something I was thinking about, but as I was praying, I heard it, and I also saw it, because I tend to see, even with me being a creative, I see, even like if you tell me a vision that you have for something, I start to see it come to life in front of me. And so even that, and transformation being a significant part of my purpose, because when I did that coaching strategy session with Dr. Moore, we talked about what is purpose. And I remember she kept having me to like break it down, but dig deeper at the same time. And so we came to the conclusion that I transform people, places, and spaces. And that's something that you can carry out in different seasons through different vehicles in different ways. So I transform people. I'm a counselor. So I transform people's thought processes, their minds, and their hearts. So that's different. That's even spaces and places within people. You see how complex and how deep this thing can get, but while being simple at the same time. But I also transform places and spaces. So, with event designs, I can go in a blank room, a blank canvas, and I can paint it so beautifully. I can, as I'm talking with the person about their vision, I can see things. I literally can see what we can do to a room. I can see a blank room, and I can see it come together. I see different. I can go in a furniture store, or I love or like stores that have a lot, like Hobby Lobby. Like I love walking in the front where they have like all that furniture. And like I remember earlier today, actually, I was in there, and there was this like table, and it had like bar stools, but it was like a skinny long table, or like a smaller long table. And I could see like, oh, if I put that in my house, what would that look like? And what would I do? And like what the walls would look like. And I can like go on those aisles sometimes that have a whole, have all the different decorations, but they kind of like would go together in a room, and I could see them like where they would fit, if I have a space in mind. So so I talked a little bit about purpose, just because I know that's going to help someone, because I felt led to share that. But the power of a pivot, even within creativity, helped me, pivoting from creativity to illustrious moments, helped me to learn so much about myself, and helped me to grow as a person. So there's so much power in pivoting, but we just have to be willing and open to pivot. And so some tips, if I could leave you all with some takeaways as we're closing out, I'll give you 3 things that can help you be or help you to effectively pivot. And one thing that I would say is be open. Don't be married to every idea that you think of, or even the great and the God ideas. Now, if it's a God idea, be married to getting it off the ground, but don't be married to what it's going to look like. Like, for instance, Let's Talk. I believe that was a God-given idea. But if I was married to the fact that, I could only speak to women, I would still be trying to force a girl group that wasn't supposed to continue on in this season. What worked in that season, my life did. But now I ain't supposed to be, I ain't supposed to be a no girl group, at least not right now through Let's Talk. There's other vehicles, there's other things that are being carried out through Let's Talk. And if I hadn't have been open, I would have missed that opportunity to pivot. And there was so much power in that pivot because it opened so many doors for me. But those doors, as I walked through them, blessed so many other people, because like I was able to create a self-care room at work. And I was so open to the mental health space and what are the needs of the people. And so not only did I carry that out personally, but on my job, what are the needs of the people, and the self-care room. And that has blessed so many people that I would have never imagined. So number 1 is to be open. 2 would be to surrender. Because you heard me talk about Let's Talk and how many times it started changing, but I really do remember, and I'm proud of myself, because I know how I can get locked in sometimes. And there's nothing wrong with getting locked in, but you just have to, write things in pencil and be willing to erase them if you need to make adjustments and changes. But I lost my train of thought. It's gonna come back to me. Because my second point was to surrender. So I was surrendered because like God was changing what Let's Talk looked like, the meeting structure. We were going from what I was comfortable with. My comfort level was like the 9 to 18-year-old girls, or even 20-something girls. And even to this day, I still have a certain level of comfort with that age group that I may not have with others, especially like that 18 to like 35, maybe, or even 37 group. I have a certain level of comfort, or 18 to 40 maybe, that I may not have with other groups at times. But it happened outside of my control, and then I just surrendered to it happening. And when I surrendered to it happening, Let's Talk began to evolve in ways that if I would have held on so tightly to my vision, Let's Talk may not have evolved the way that it did, and with so much grace, because it wasn't hard. It was an effortless evolution. It wasn't hard for me to make that evolution, because I was surrendered. Now, that is a great example of my surrender, because I tell people, listen, in other areas, I struggle to surrender. And, I just like to be transparent, because I know I love God, and I know I'm a mess at the same time. Like, I make mistakes. I don't get everything right. And I'm okay with that. Like, I know that there's been some other areas that I have struggled with surrendering in. And sometimes your life, the evidence of that is there too. But with Let's Talk, that's such a beautiful example of how I just really easily surrendered and how it's evolved. And I hope that's an example, for you all. And even as I'm talking, I'm like, it's ministering to me that that's an example to surrender in other areas. So number 1 is number 1 would be to be open. Number 2 would be to surrender. And then number 3 would be to let go of opinions and take yourself out of the box. So let go of the opinions of yourself and others, the negative opinions that you have about you and what you're supposed to do, the limiting beliefs and opinions, the opinions that tell you you have to do what everyone else in your family or circle has done, but you know and believe that you need to do something different. Let that shit go. You got to let it go. You really have to let it go, and you really have to be willing to follow your own path. Let the negativity, don't let people put you in a box, and don't put yourself in a box. Be willing to follow what you feel led to do. You may feel the leading of God telling you to do something. You do it. You may be like, I don't know how to do it. Just step out. If you feel that leading, just step out. A good friend of mine said at the top of the, it was at the end of last year, I need you to put yourself out there more. I was like, well, I really don't know. He was like, just do something, because God's going to pull you back in. He ain't going to let you get but so far, if you're wrong, like he's going to pull you back in. So you just have to do it. You have to free yourself, and it's easier said than done, but it's doable. That's not an excuse to not to do it. You have to free yourself from the opinions of others, the limiting opinions and beliefs of yourself, and free yourself from your past. Because if you can learn anything from me, like I mentioned, I made a lot of mistakes with creativity, and a lot of them were attached to my past and current traumas that I was experiencing at the time, because trauma impacts how we see the world, literally impacts how our brain functions. So when we go through traumatic experiences, it could have been 18 years ago, but it could still be holding you back from something that you want to do today. Limiting beliefs that you had in your childhood, subliminal messages that you're not even aware of that told you that you weren't enough at 4 can still be affecting you at 34, 37, 45 if you haven't dealt with it. So you have to let go of your past. You have to be open. You have to be surrendered, and you have to let go of opinions, stinking thinking. You got to let go of your past. You have to let go of the box that you have put yourself in, and you can't let other people put you in the box. So the last one was a lot. I'll put these points in the notes. And I thank you all for coming out and listening to me in episode 3. I thank God that I've done 3 episodes, because sometimes follow through can be critical. You can have a lot of ideas, but you don't always follow through. So I do thank God for the tenacity and fortitude to do these 3 episodes. And I believe this season will continue. And if you like the content that you saw, or if you're just curious, or if you want to continue to receive this content, subscribe to @Let's Talk Wellness on YouTube, and you'll get notified every time that a new episode drops. So thank you all for rocking with me. Let's continue to take care of ourselves, not only in September for self-care awareness, but all year long. And I challenge you to think about some areas in your life that you're wanting to pivot on. You're wanting a change. You need to make a change. Let's make it happen. Let's see what we already have that we can use. Had some hair in my eye, excuse me. What we already have that we can use to pivot. What do we have within us? We often have it within us. So what do we have within us? What pivot can you make in your life, and how much power will come from